Yo guys, what's up? My name is Judge Prime, the ITK, here again with another review. Now today we are talking about Alicia Keys' latest album, Here. I think it's safe to say at this point in her career, Alicia Keys is already a legend. She has really paved the way for a lot of R&B singers, even pop singers, being a very vocal activist as well, being a very inspirational figure. So definitely at this point in her career, Alicia Keys, in my opinion, is a legend, and she certainly solidifies this legendary status on this album here. For a brief overview, I would say what you're getting on this is a lot of positivity on this. You're getting a lot of messaging about being yourself, being natural, and being comfortable with who you are as a person. On this project, Alicia Keys discusses her life. She pays homage to her city of New York. She also talks about being comfortable as a woman, talks about, climate change, something that you don't hear people talk about often in music. She also talks about social issues, about the black community, and so on and so forth. This album takes a more jazzy or soulful feel, definitely feeling a lot of soul in Alicia Keys' delivery, a bit of jazz in the instrumentation. You still have the traditional piano ballads that, are characteristic when you talk about Alicia Keys. I will say I do like this present crop of albums that we've had the past couple of years. Obviously talking about albums like Common's Black America Again, which I did a review of I think last week, Solange's A Seat at the Table, and of course with this Here. So taking a look at the tracks, the album opens with the track at the beginning, which is a nice piano ballad. You have this kind of swelling of emotion. I felt a swelling of emotion within myself listening to the track. It then follows with the track The Gospel, which is sort of a continuation of the interlude. And basically on this track, she's talking about her family, the environment with which she grew up in, crime and drugs, how her uncle was a crook as well. And then the next track, Pawn It All, the feeling I get on this track is Alicia Keys is basically saying there is no price to freedom. So take all her wealth, take everything she has, her chains, everything, so that she can start again. This is a very powerful track. Again, I think this is a very powerful album in general. Very motivational, very inspiring, very thought-provoking as well. The next track, Kill Your Mama, like I said, this track talks about climate change. It talks about how we as humans are destroying our environment or our mother Earth, how we're just pillaging and taking and just, destroying the planet with no second thought. I think this is another powerful track. So many powerful tracks on this. I think this is something that was unexpected for me and something that was very welcome. Climate change, arguably, perhaps you could say, is the most important issue that we face as humanity, because climate change has the capability to wipe us all out, and it is an issue that is often neglected, not just in media but also by artists. You don't see that many artists come out or that frequently talk about climate change. So definitely another powerful track on here. Next track, She Don't Really Care and One Love. This track is basically She Don't Really Care is basically an homage to New York, talking about a young queen and her experiences in different parts of New York. It then has a very lovely bridge, which leads to sort of the joint track on this, One Love, which is like a throwback or a shout out to Nas's original track titled One Love Again, which was released on his Illmatic album. The next track, Illusion of Bliss. Basically on this track, Alicia Keys is talking about addiction to fame, addiction to attention, addiction to drugs, and being entrapped with that cycle of being addicted and that sort of helplessness you have when you're addicted. So there are so many topics that are being touched on with this album. It's not just touching on black issues. It's not just touching on, female empowerment. It is also touching on things like drug abuse. It is also touching on climate change. It's touching on so many things, and it really is like just this activist statement on everything that she is witnessing or has experienced, or that experiences of her family members or people around her, and it definitely is a very compelling listen for an album. The next track, Blended Family, or What You Do for Love, featuring A$AP Rocky. Basically, it's talking about complicated families but still loving your family. She talks on here about how she loves Swiss Beats children who she isn't the biological mother of, but she still loves them nevertheless. A$AP Rocky also is featured on this track. He delivers some very beautiful and very good vocals on this track. On the hook, he also talks about having like 4 stepmothers and how Christmas was always very enjoyable for him. Another track I found very interesting and I did enjoy quite a bit, Girl Can't Be Herself. This track just talks about, the unnecessary constraints we have in society regarding societal perceptions of beauty, how women have to put on makeup and be uncomfortable and insecure with their bodies because of this portrait of beauty that is being perpetuated by the media, especially on social media. Basically she's saying, women or girls can't be themselves, they can't be comfortable with their own skin. This is a very empowering track. Definitely can see this being an anthem for women. I love this track. I'm in full support of this track. I've always felt like makeup is completely unnecessary because it makes you more insecure than it does make you feel secure. So definitely another powerful track. I think this track is also reflected in the album's cover. You see Alicia Keys being natural with her hair out, with what I'd like to believe would be no makeup or maybe minimal amounts of makeup on her face. So definitely another great track on this project. Another track, More Than You Know, which is basically calling on all of us, all humans, to just come together and, work together to make the world a better place. Where do we begin now? This track is interesting. Basically on this track, she's talking about same-sex relationships and what is she going to tell the world and what is she going to tell her family, being distraught, being confused as to what is going to happen on this track. Could this be Alicia Keys giving us a hint that maybe, something's going on in her personal life? Or is this, a message or a sign of support for people who are within the LGBT community? Perhaps maybe it's both, maybe it's one or the other. The next track, Holy War. Basically on this track, Alicia Keys is saying how war is seen as being holy and righteous, whereas sex is frowned upon and seen as being sinful. The sort of double standards that humans have, how we build walls against each other based on our differences, our sexuality and our skin color. We need to break down those walls. And Holy War is an interesting track. Definitely how religious people wage war against people who might be of same-sex relationships, or wage war against people that they don't like or they don't share the same values in, whereas we could just come together and understand our differences and acknowledge that we do have similarities and, sort of bond on those similarities. Next track, Hallelujah, a very soulful, delivered in a very passionate manner, basically seeking divine strength and guidance. This album closes with the track In Common, which is produced by Ilangelo, a producer of The Weeknd's. And on this track, you see Alicia Keys sort of take on that alternative R&B vibe, certainly being an iconic figure in terms of more traditional R&B. It is good to see her sort of adapt or, embrace the alternative R&B sound. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed this entire album. I think this is a very powerful album. I think this is a very meaningful album, a very passionate and soulful album. There's a lot to sit down and just reminisce in on this album. I highly recommend this album to everybody out there, whether you like R&B or not, to just listen and take in the messages. There are a lot of powerful and compelling messages throughout this album. But to be more specific, I will say this album is for those who enjoyed Solange's A Seat at the Table. If you also enjoyed maybe Lindsay Abuday's and The Bassist Queen. If you are a fan of Alicia Keys, definitely you will enjoy this. If you're a listener who has been looking for artists to talk about things like climate change or sexuality, in terms of same-sex sexuality, in terms of how the world doesn't, how we fight each other, or you're looking for an artist to talk about maybe female insecurity, female empowerment, all of that, this is definitely an album to look into. This is a strong 9.5 out of 10. I will say that a couple of things on here were a little bit cheesy, the whole, coming together, but definitely I do appreciate and understand it. I will say I do have a bit of worry. This album may lack replay value for a few people, but again, I highly recommend this album to everybody watching. Go out and listen or buy this album. It is definitely worth your time in my opinion. 9.5 out of 10. One of the albums of the year. Great soul, great R&B, great meaning, great content, and it does have a beautiful theme which I enjoy and will be listening to for a long time. But those are just my opinions. If you'd like to see my thoughts on similar albums, like I said, Solange's A Seat at the Table, I did a review of that. You can be sure to check that out. If you want to check out my other reviews, please feel free to do that. Maybe if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. If you're new around here, why not click subscribe? My name is Ijaji Prime. I hope you have a blessed day and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.